Alright, I'm here to accept a nomination from the community of YouTubia as Minister of Philosophy. And I'll be honest, I don't know what any of that means. I have no idea. Maybe Mystery Eye or Fernifer will do a video in response to this and let me know exactly what all that means. My understanding of it is that YouTubia, UTUBIA, is a small community here, like within YouTube, that deals with its own community issues and issues that pertain, they believe, to the YouTube community. It's also my understanding that I don't have to, nor do I endorse anything that anybody else on any council says. That being said, as an independent agent, I accept Minister of Philosophy. At the same time, I must say that I'm embarrassed by the nomination because philosophy, as a study, as a truth-seeking institution, is not my emphasis of study. I studied I'm a behaviorist and historian. Those are my emphasis of studies, both truth-seeking institutions, but not philosophy. I do believe that you can be philosophical about those things. I do believe that that anybody that thinks is a philosopher, philosophers that people that think outside the box, that think about thinking, that ask questions, the right questions. It's easy to ask questions, but it's not easy to ask the right questions. And the reason I started this page on YouTube, batphilo, is because I believe that people weren't asking the right questions. And what I mean by that is this. It's not that I knew what the right questions were, and there were YouTubers that were asking the right questions. Everybody was just ignoring the right questions. And I think that that's a very important thing to talk about, and I think that there needs to be discourse. I think that we need to look at things beyond the cultural taboos that we've allowed to be indoctrinated by. And I mean, that can happen in both sides of issues. Like, for instance, a lot of YouTubers I watch a lot of the theists and atheists go at each other. And I don't really get into it because I think it's a pretty futile, intentionally confrontational battle, but it's still entertaining to watch. That being said, I think that both sides have a taboo. The atheists have this almost tedious tendency to constantly want people to challenge me. Ask me a question, I can't answer anything. Anything can be answered through science, which isn't true. We have a lot of things we don't know. I watched the Darwinists and creationists go at each other here. And some of it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I see these, like, the theologians I see on YouTube, if they can be called that, have this tendency to believe that simply because they believe something you have to respect it, or they make these inane arguments like, well, you can't prove there isn't a God, so therefore, I mean, you can't prove that there isn't a fuzzy green guy up on the moon that controls our every move. It doesn't mean that he exists, or she exists, or it exists. I would imagine it would have to be asexual. But, anyway, I mean, and the atheists on YouTube, I think, are intentionally confrontational and demeaning, and I don't think there's a need for that either, because I do believe that there's a reason that we have these universal traits, and I don't mean like in a Carl Jung kind of collective consciousness thing. I mean like more on we share a gene pool, people. We can all reproduce, and that's pretty specific when it comes to matter replicating itself, because we don't see matter do that a lot, especially in the complex level of life. Just a single cell organism is an immensely complex chemical reaction going on, and an amazingly consistent one as well. Considering all the things that are involved, the things that go wrong are pretty minute, and I that science really needs to study why most humans share this theological perspective. And I would ask atheists, I would ask you to challenge yourself right now. Think about it. When the last time you had computer problems, your hard drive crashed, or fucker kept rebooting on itself, or whatever, I mean, did you cuss at it? Like it could hear you? Like it mattered? Did you blame it for like messing up something? I mean, that's animism. And the or like, you loved your car for getting you home one night because you were drunk, something like that. I mean, that's animism. And even though like the next day you can go, that was completely illogical, I don't know why I would have done that, you're still doing it almost instinctually. And I think we have to ask ourselves why humans do that. Why do we do that? And why did that develop? And why did that turn into, rather than learning from our ancestors or genetically inheriting certain behaviors, and we certainly do that, and with the way we walk, the way we think, I would certainly see the cognitive ability runs across genetic lines. It would seem to make sense to me that these behaviors may be wired. They may be some kind of vestigial nerve wiring that comes from something that helped us survive as apes or something. Who knows? And I think that science needs to question that. Why are all these people believing in this crazy shit? So I think that science and the people that call themselves theological skeptics, and the people on YouTube aren't theological skeptics. The atheists on YouTube are decidedly confrontational. I don't think there's a need for that. Really, I mean, there are taboos that are grounded in science. Pedophilia and incest are things that are grounded. You rape a 9-year-old girl, she's not it's gonna fuck up her nervous system. Period. We know post-traumatic stress, and we know that certain traumatic events, and trauma can be, and pedophilia certainly is, and certainly shows, negative post-traumatic, negative socialization patterns, as negative socialization patterns manifest itself because of that post-traumatic stress, without pretty intensive reprogramming. And incest, obviously, from a biological level, there are recessive genes that aren't good for the gene pool, that aren't good for natural selection, that probably shouldn't pass on, that you do when you interbreed, and not interbreed specially, but interbreed close familial lines. And I think that science needs to start trying to figure out why humans have that. Steven Pinker talks quite a bit about moral development and how possibly it could be something that was selected for. And I believe, I think mathematically they've actually, had computers actually almost kind of teach themselves, according to Pinker they've actually kind of almost taught themselves like this very remedial moral system that seems to replicate ours. Computer modeling, I think, honestly, my jury's out, because there are things going on that we can't program because we don't know what those environmental factors are. Such as olfactory. We're just starting to tune in now as a community of humans trying to figure out human behavior, how important olfactory is. It's simply because we can't consciously smell something doesn't mean that it doesn't trigger nerve patterns in your brain that are unconscious, whatever consciousness means is. And we got a lot to learn about ourselves, and it's very difficult to learn about ourselves because it's very difficult to objectively study yourself, if that makes any sense. It's almost impossible because we are our nervous system. All personality really is the interaction between our nervous system and its environment. I think that both atheists are doing themselves a disservice by not trying to study why people think the way they do, and just put them down and call them bad and evil, and you started all the wars, which is all bullshit too. And I think that theists need to stop and allow science. If they're really true, and it really is truth, I think they need to go, well, it's true, so what are we worried about? Go ahead, science, we would like you to take a look at why we believe the things we do. So, that's what this is about. See ya.